Okay.
All right, we are recording. Everybody, thanks for joining today's event. Today is the second day of the Youth Initiative. Our guest speaker today is Chalita Blakwa Awosika. I was like about Awosika at the end. We ain't losing you. Um, she's my big sister. She's going to be covering law and immigration today, especially those that are interested in coming abroad for going abroad for school or just hey, they call it the JAPA process, whatever, the proper way to do it if you want to do it. She's going to be educating you about the laws around it. If you're a student, how to do it. If you want to come with your family, how to do it, and all this good stuff. So, Charlita, welcome. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, of course. Thanks for asking me to do this. And yes, I will always be your sister forever. I'm not going nowhere. So my law firm is Coda Immigration Law Firm. And shout out to Kind Day who set up my website for me. So thank you for that. I can be reached with any questions at Charlita at codaimmigration.com or the website is codaimmigration.com as well. I made it easy. So I just want to talk about the legal process before we go into how people can come and things like that. So to become a lawyer, and just in general, you have to go to college, get your first degree. And I tell people, get a degree in something other than law. Don't do legal studies, don't do criminal justice, do business. If you want to do accounting, do something else that you can fall back on, so to speak, or at least have a focus in. Because what I'm seeing lately is that even with legal jobs, they're looking for people with something else in their background. So I might get a job offer, but they're saying, oh, do you have accounting in your background? Do you have a business background? Do you have a health background? Do you have the educational background? So like my degree, my first degree is in international business with a French minor. So that allows me to be able to, if I want to go to the business world, or also utilize it in law, depending on what I want to do. I went a different route than business law, but it has helped me work with organizations and work with businesses because I do have that business background as well as a law degree. So secondly, you go to law school for 3 to 4 years, depending on the track you take. Some people go part-time, which is 4 years. Most people go 3 years full-time, or you can take summer sessions, and some have finished in 2.5 years, but that's really hard and tedious to do, but it is doable. After that, you pass the bar. So we're going to talk more about that, but you do have to take the bar exam, and it's only offered twice a year, July and February. So if you fail the July bar, you can take the February bar because you graduate usually in May, take the bar in July and become a lawyer, get sworn in August. But if you don't pass it, they give you another chance in February. That's the United States. It may be a little different in your home country. Then you choose the type of law you want to focus on. I'll talk more about that. I did different kinds. I've done criminal law, I've done probate law, I worked as a probate lawyer, I worked as a family law attorney, I worked as a defense counsel, I worked in juvenile law. I just wanted to figure out what exactly I wanted to do. But in law school, I focused on international business law because I wanted to be a business lawyer, but I just chose, like I said, a different path, and I'll talk more about that. After you choose what kind of law you want to focus on, either in law school or after you pass the bar, you start your career, and that's when you have to start looking for jobs. So I'll talk a little bit about how to search for jobs, depending on what you want to do. After we get our Juris Doctorate, law is a little backwards. We get our doctorate in law, so to speak, and then we get our master's in law. So the Juris Doctorate, I have the doctor's hat, all the stuff that doctors have when they graduate. I have the same thing. Bye, Jojo. Sorry about that. I have the same thing, and then you can go get an LLM, which is a master's in law. That's also used I'll talk later about how to get here. Some people come and get their LLM, and that also helps them in taking the bar here in the United States, even though they practice law in their home country. So I'll talk a little bit about law school. So there are basic classes everybody has to take. We all take criminal law, constitutional law. So the basic areas that you know about law, we have to have a foundation. We take contract law and the basics of those. Then there are classes in your focus area. So I took contract classes, but then I also took FAR, which is federal regulations concerning contracts. I took family law, and then I took international law. So I learned about laws in different countries and how they impact the United States. And if I want to travel overseas, you know, what types of laws and how do they have and how are they different? How are they the same? And is that an area I want to go to? So there's different things you can do. And that's why I say a focus in law, because you can take classes that focus on the kind of law that you want to do. The other thing I advise people to do is take classes that cover your specific bar. So I took the Ohio bar in the United States, and I went and looked through all the different types of questions that they offered on the bar exam. Ohio was 2.5 days. So there were a lot of different areas that they focused on, but I made sure that I took at least one class in each of those areas that was on my bar exam. So that's forward thinking. Yes, sir. You have a question?
Yeah. Are there bars that you can take that covers multiple states? And if you were in Nigeria, you wanted to get into law in the States, how does that work?
So they started doing bar exams that cross multiple states now. It's called the Universal Bar. So it's honored in most states, but there are still some states that do not allow it. So what it is that most states are 2 days. So you have your basic core, what would I say, areas that are in every state. So there are certain laws and jurisdiction issues and things that cover all 50 states. But then there are things that are specific to your state. So for that bar, they call it the Universal Bar, and it does cover multiple states, but then you may have to take like a smaller exam for a new state. So I won't have to sit for 2 days anymore to take a state bar if I want to say go to New York. I don't have to sit for that. Part of it is because I've been practicing law for so long, but also for other people, it's a universal bar. So they don't have to take it, they can waive in. But I will say about that bar is that you do have to have a certain score in order to do that. For example, I waived into DC. That's what we waive into another state. I waived into DC because I had high scores on my Ohio bar. If you do not have a high score on your bar, on your state bar, you won't be able to transfer it into a new state. And I also believe with the universal bar, but that you have to have a certain score, or some states may tell you the certain score. That's criteria to be able to utilize it in that territory. To your second question about coming to the United States, it's called you have to take a United States bar exam. So there are certain states that allow you to take the state bar exam, and those 2 states are New York and Florida. So if you have a bar in Nigeria, Cameroon, or some other country, you are able to come to the United States once you get admittance into the United States, which we'll talk about later. So when you get here, people say, what should I do? Most of us recommend that you either take the Florida bar or the New York bar, because that is recognized. So once you have one bar exam that you have passed successfully, then you're able to go into other states and also either take their bar or use that bar score to be able to waive into the other states that you may actually want to live in. The other thing that some people do before that is take what we call the LLM that I talked about before. You get your master's in law in any school that you want to. The thing is, it costs money, just like any other degree, it costs money to do that. So you get your master's in law, and then after you get your master's in law, you go and you can take the bar exam as well. Or sometimes they don't even require that of you. If you have a master's in law, then they consider that a law degree. And so you're able to get some legal jobs. But I also always recommend that you take some type of bar. So even if you come in with the F1 student visa, take your LLM course in a specific area, you still need to take your bar exam. Can you get legal jobs? Yes, but you will not get paid as a lawyer, as a licensed practitioner, and there's a difference. There are some jobs that allow you, if you have a JD, they say, okay, you can work, but it limits what you can do, and it limits the level that you can go to. So having that bar is very important. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Oh. I see some.
Yeah, I think Uncle Tayo posted a message about
This one sort.
yeah. Yeah, it said, hello, I wanted to ask about questions on if one overstays in the US and wishes to revisit, how does one sort out this? I also had an alien number but did not process this during my 10-year stay in the US.
So overstaying, if you overstay, I'll put it this way. If you overstay and you want to, and you're overseas, so if you overstay and then you want to come back to the United States, they do take that into consideration. And so they may deny your visitor's visa because they know that you won't honor your 6-month visa. Because that's how long you're supposed to stay at one time. Usually I tell clients 2 to 3 months, you should go back and come back in so that they know you're just visiting and you're not planning to reside in the United States, because the visitor's visa says you're coming to visit and you're leaving. So if you do overstay and you want to come back to the United States, the way to do it is to get a visitor's visa. Is to try again for a visitor's visa. Some people also, do student visas, or, you get married and somebody files for you. The only caution I have with that is that if you file for multiple visas based on different things, then they'll realize that you're just trying to find a way to the United States, and there just may be a blanket denial. So every situation is different and every case is different. So I would have to know some other situations that may mitigate your ability to either return to the United States or stay in the United States and become legally in the United States, because it is on a case-by-case basis. But overall, that's the general rule or policy that's in the United States. You can have the alien number, but and then you can get an alien number for different reasons. So it matters on why you were issued that alien number. What was the basis of the filing? Were you a permanent resident and you need to renew it? Or were you here on a visa and they just gave you an alien number? Were you here on a student visa and they gave you an alien number? So there's a lot of, like I said, for the first part, mitigating factors as to what that means, because you could have been here for 10 years with an alien number, but if you had a green card, then you could have received your citizenship. If you went back overseas, then you would have to file for your green card again, because it's considered abandoned after a certain amount of time. So it also matters how long you've been overseas, because it may be considered abandoned. And if you didn't renew it, or if you have situations that you can disclose, then you may be able to ask for a renewal of it based on extenuating circumstances as to why you did not properly do so before you left.
That actually raises a good question. Is there a situation where a naturalized American can end up being an abandoned American? Like you lived the country for too long, or maybe you were born in the country and you were taken back to Nigeria, but you stayed in Nigeria all your life. Could that cause you to lose your citizenship?
No, once you're naturalized, you're a citizen.
Okay, so you
Doesn't
can
go
just
away. It's just
okay.
when you're a green card holder, then there are rules that apply to you that you have to be in the United States at least 6 months out of the year. If you need to stay longer than that, then you have to make a request. There's a petition that we file for you so that you're able to come and go as you need to or stay longer if you're going to stay longer. Usually it's more than 6 months, but if it's longer than a year, you definitely need that documentation before you leave. And I tell people before you leave, because I've had some clients, some people come to me and say, well, I left already and I've been gone for 2 years. What can I do? Well, you're supposed to file that documentation before you leave. And then when you get the documentation, it says that you're going to leave for an extended amount of time. And when you're ready to come back, you're approved to come back. But when you leave without getting that documentation, that's when you have issues.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry for interrupting your
No, it's okay. I don't mind. Thank you for your questions. So if anything else comes up while I'm talking, just let me know. So I was saying, take the classes of areas of interest to you as well. Make sure you don't want to just take classes for classes' sake. You should take things that are interesting to you. And the reason I say that is that you may take a criminal law class outside of the basic class that we have to take on criminal defense, and you realize I do not want to. I realized early on, even though I have I was a criminal defense attorney, I realized that I just wanted to do smaller cases, petty drug deals or something like that. I didn't really want to go above that because I didn't want to have to deal with certain situations. So if I'm a defense lawyer, it doesn't matter if you murdered somebody or you violated somebody, I would have to defend you and you have the right to counsel. So I realized that I didn't want to. So I dealt with petty crimes that didn't deal with, breaking of federal laws or certain laws to that degree, felonies. The judges wanted me to take on felony cases because I was a committed attorney, but I knew there were some felonies that I did not, that I did not want to handle. So that was it. So that's why I say take classes of interest, figure out what you want to do. And you may not know right away, but it's okay. Pick the right people to follow. The reason I say that, and I say that for any school, but especially in law school, find upperclassmen that are actually doing well and that are actually known by the teachers. Some people say, oh, okay, I'm gonna go with this upperclassman because of, I like their hair. Doesn't matter. The upperclassmen that I spoke to had good grades, had great notes, had great study guides, knew the teachers, and actually got good grades in those teachers' classes. So, and the professors' classes. So that makes a difference. It really does make a huge difference when you have proper guidelines. It doesn't mean that you're going to ace all your exams, but at least you'll have a heads up and you'll have an edge outside besides other students. I said pick the right study buddies. The reason I say that also is because you need to be around the right people. There were sometimes people that wanted to study with me. It was not helping me. I didn't get any studying done that was effective at all. And so after we had a nice time together, acting like we were talking about contracts, I had to go study. So it was a waste of 2-3 hours in my day. So pick the right people to be around. Sometimes we try to pick people that are culturally like us or look like us or act like us or like the things we like. You need to get someone that's smarter than you and that understands it better than you, or at least that you can speak with. And law is always a discussion. You go back and forth. So someone that you can have educated conversations with is my recommendation. And I had some of those. And sometimes we also kick people out of our study group. So you got to be a little strong-willed in order to do that as well. So the bar exam is 2 months. Sorry, you study for 2 months, 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, dedicated study. It is your full-time job. Some people have jobs because you have families, but you have to commit at least 4 hours a day to studying for 8 weeks. Then the best advice I received was take a break right before you take the bar exam. The day before the bar exam, I didn't open a book. I went and I had fun. My professor told us to go to an amusement park and have fun. Don't think about it, because the next 2 to 3 days are tough. Tough. So take a break, enjoy yourself. The other thing, because this is a mentorship class or group, be prepared, don't rush, and stay focused. And that's with any class you want to take or any exam you need to take. If you're not focused and if you're rushing, trying to cram all the information, you're going to forget half of it. You're not going to remember it. You're going to think, oh my gosh, I know I saw this. You saw it somewhere. But because you weren't diligent in your study and because you weren't focused, you're not going to do well. And find your best way to study. I went and I did an online study course. Some other people had books, so I had books, but mine was an independent study course. I didn't take a class like other people. It was independent study. I went on my own pace. I had a professor that I could talk to if I had any questions. And that's what I did. That worked for me. Other people took classes and they were in groups, and that worked for them. The class that I took, because we have to do an ethics course that was in a group. The first time I took it, I failed it. It was awful. It's not a good way for me to study. The second time I took it, I aced it because I did it on my own. I went through my questions on my own and I excelled. So you have to figure out what works for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about careers. You can go into immigration. I'm now an immigration attorney. Like I said, I practice probate, defense, juvenile law. I was a child advocate, protecting abused children. I did that for a while, and now I'm doing immigration. I started with immigration and I came back. So find the career. You can do health, IT, policy, contracts, juvenile law, family law. And then there's also what we call a judge track. So on the judge track, there are certain things that you do need to do. If you do want to be a judge, certain areas of law that you should practice or be focused in or excel in order for you to be a judge, because they're not going to appoint you as a judge in a family law courtroom if all you've done is defense. So if you do want to be a judge, make sure that you are mentored by other judges and know that there are judges that are very kind and nice. Or or if you don't know any, find another legal professional that actually practices in front of the court and ask them about judges that they know, and they may be able to connect you with judges. I met some really nice judges that were willing to help me. I've met some really nice attorneys that were really helpful in helping me advance my career. So I recommend that in whatever career track you choose. And if you decide, like I did, I decided I didn't want to do probate, families fight too much. Family law drained me. I loved it. I liked being a child advocate. I realized I don't like messy divorces. I did all that. In classes, it looked really nice, but in real life, it wasn't as beautiful. People get really angry at each other in family disputes. And but I also will say that in family law, I was a child advocate. So there's different areas within each one that you can focus in. In immigration, I do a lot of family immigration, but there's business immigration. There are people that focus on a certain part, they just litigate, they do litigations, they do appeals. So don't just think it's just one aspect or one part that you have to focus on, even if you choose health or policy or contracts. There's so many different things. I know people that wrote White House speeches. I know a lawyer. He was a speechwriter for the White House, for presidents and other politicians. That's what he did because he learned how to write. He learned how to communicate. I know someone that was a contract lawyer. He excelled in that, and he found his niche and saved the government millions of dollars. And so they were happy. So don't think, oh man, I don't want to sit down and write contracts. Maybe you just review them. But you just have to have that right background. Compliance, maybe you want to tell people how they're not doing the right thing, and that works for you. So you just find your niche, but don't think it's limiting. Some people think lawyers are just in the courtroom all the time. You don't have to be. You don't have to be in the courtroom all the time. You don't have to be yelling at the prosecutor all the time. You don't have to. Can I do that? Yes. Do I prefer that? I don't. I don't prefer to litigate. I can if I need to, pretty good at it. But I decided that's not what I wanted to do. So I just like to tell people that it's not the only way to do things. So I know that's just an overview of law. So Kinde also wanted to talk about coming to America. So coming to America, you can do come as a student on a student visa. A lot of people do that. I will say there is an application process, and I advise you to go to uscis.gov, uscis.gov, and go there and do a search for schools. So there are a list of schools that USCIS agrees are good for people from overseas to come and be educated at. There's a long list, so you can't say, oh, there's only, no, there's hundreds of schools on the list. The other thing I do is when I advise students is pick a good school that focuses on that area. Don't say, oh, this school is $10,000, so I'm just going to go here and I'm going to tell them I'm going to study architecture. That school isn't known for architectural work. That school isn't known for health. That school isn't known for any of that thing, any of those things. But that's what you want to put on your application. It's not going to work. Yes. Kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that because I coach a lot of people. The SAT, ACT should you come as undergraduate, should you come as a grad student, and then some of them just research schools and they just pick a school because it's cheaper because they look at the expense. What are the chances of maybe majority of the school fees being paid for? What can they do to overcome that high expense of that school? Those are some things that people have questions about.
Okay, so thank you. That's a good question. So there's certain colleges. I was advising someone last week or two, like Berea College is in Kentucky. My brothers went there, but it's an international school. And so they have a lot of immigrants that go to that school, and they pay a majority of school fees and they're recognized. So that's the thing. There are colleges out there that will help you and give you scholarships to go to their school. Because they do want people, they want a diverse population of students. So there are colleges out there. You just have to do your footwork and know what colleges offer scholarships to those that are coming from overseas. What colleges offer benefits? Do they allow us to work? So now legally students are allowed to work. Yeah, you may not make as much money, but you are allowed to work on campus and find jobs like that. So what schools offer decent paying jobs that you could actually do while you're here? So you're working and you're going to school as well, but it's not a hard job. It's not a 9-to-5 job. It's an on-campus job, or you're getting scholarships. That's why it's so important to make sure you're excelling in your academics before you need to go to college. And also have a diverse profile. Don't just say, I went to school and I studied and I got a 4.5 GPA. And they said, what else did you do? Were you just in the books? Oh, no, okay, I was a student, you know, I was on an organization, a government organization in school, or I was in sports. You know, they like student athletes. They like people that have diverse profile to say that, okay, they're not only in they're not only about academics, but they're also going to be a benefit to society. If you're a benefit in your school, your high school, or in your community, you're going to be a benefit to that college or university's community as well. And hopefully in the United States, if you decide you want to stay here. And that also helps you as you segue, because you get OPT, and then sometimes from OPT, your company will file for a green card for you. So that's another thing that I advise students as well to do, to make sure that you, even when you pick a career outside of what Kinde was saying about picking the right school, make sure you pick the right career path. Don't come and say, I'm doing nursing. Okay, what kind of nurse are you going to be? Are you going to be in neurology? Are you going to be an anesthesiologist, you know, or, you know, someone that's focused on that or able to do that as a nurse, adding that as something else you're able to do? Are you going to be a neonatal nurse, or what are you going to do? Because you have to find a focus. Don't just say, I'm going to go to the school. Okay, after you found a school that's great for nursing, make sure when you're in that school that you get accepted to, that's good in nursing, that you find a focus. Don't just be another regular nurse that's coming around. You're not going to get hired. The company's not going to file an H-1B for you, and you're not going to get a green card. So those are things that are very important in that process. Yes.
Yeah, that kind of leads to my next question because there's been a lot of them that come here and they get really good grades, but they can't find a job because of either they didn't specialize, they did not try to get a job while they're in school, or their visa limits them to the amount of hours they can do, or maybe the career choice that they've picked only limits them to staying 6 months after school, or maybe they can live out. In IT, I think sometimes you get 2 years, especially if you're able to get into a company that can give you a visa. So if you can cover some of that, that would be great.
Okay. Yes. So I've had some students come to me and we talked about their OPT, and then we talked about extending their OPT again. And so what I tell them is whatever that company is, that original company is, outside of the 6 months that you're allowed to go and you're trying to find a job, make sure you work for that a company that's actually able to file the H-1B for you, if that's what your goal is for them to do so that you can stay in the United States. You can't go to a company that doesn't have that in their culture. When you go on their website, do you see a diverse culture? When you go on there, what type of people are they hiring for the long haul? When you see their partners, their CEOs, their executives, those that they're posting on their websites, or even those you may get to know in internships with them, is there diversity? If there's not diversity, it's going to be hard. If they have only males there, if you're a female, it's going to be hard. You, as an immigrant, are less likely to be the first Black African American female that they hire. Most likely they're going to hire someone that's already in the United States. So you need to, those are things to look at. Are they even capable? Do they have the finances to be able to pay for someone to get the H-1B? Because it's costly. It costs them money to file that paperwork. And have you talked to other people about it? You know, other co-workers that have worked there. Is that something that they think that their company is willing to do based on their interactions with the higher ups? So those are obstacles that people have, because people have come to me and like, oh, I was just working because I just needed to be here for another 6 months. Okay, so you have to be strategic in where you work. You have to be strategic on what course of study you choose. Make sure you have the primary area of focus, and make sure that it's somewhere you can see yourself in the long haul. Because sometimes people want a temporary fix. So the first job that offer they get, they take it. Well, that might not be the best job for you. It may be worth you waiting 2 weeks or even 30 days if you need to get that job that you really need. Because one thing you don't want to do is be a job hopper. Oh, I just chose it because I needed it, and then you leave. Well, you don't know who they know in that industry that you're trying to go to, or that company you're trying to go to, that they'll talk to and be like, oh, it happened to me. I was working for the government. So I was working for Customs and Border Patrol. And they're like, why did you leave? Because I wanted to go with another government agency. And I was honest with them. I left because I didn't want to work from home. I didn't want to work on site. I wanted to work from home. But I'm saying all that to say is that they ask those kinds of questions. You said on your resume, you're here for only 3 months. Why? You have to have a valid reason why. So that's why I always say, choose a job that you choose, a company or organization that you know will be a benefit to you as well as you be a benefit to them. And don't rush into a job or a certain industry if that's really not what you want to do. Yes.
But Nigerians coming from Nigeria, they have so much. People back home are pressuring them. They want money, not understanding that they're also in school. So a lot of them get jobs under the table without trying to get jobs in their specific career fields, with sometimes the limitation of the F1 visa. What would you recommend for folks like that to do?
To be honest, I would tell the family, I need you to give me time. I mean, I believe in honesty. If you're struggling because you're sending money back home, and I know, like you said, people are, need you to help, but you need to be able to explain to them. And I think the seminar that we had last week, the attorney was very helpful in that. When he said, you tell them, no, I can't give it to you right now because I need to take care of myself. If I'm not advancing in my career, if I don't get the right job, I won't be able to help you later. I can give you these 100,000 naira today, but tomorrow I won't have it. So if you want me to have it continually all the time, then let me focus on my career. Let me focus on getting the right job so that I can advance. And when I advance, we all advance together. So that would be the advice I give them, is to be honest, because sometimes because of pride, people don't speak up. I've had clients, oh, Charlie, you don't understand, you grew up here. I'm like, okay, I may not understand fully because I did grow up here. However, this is what I'm telling you. And this, if you do these things, it works. So those that listen to me and take the time to be diligent and actually do what you need to do to excel, to get that right job, and to focus in that area that you need to, you learn in the end that it was worth it, because instead of taking that under the table job that is illegal anyway and scraping by, telling them, give me that 6 months to do what I need to do, in the end, they'll appreciate it. Because do they want to be fed for 6 months, or do they want to be fed for 6 years? So that's the advice I would give them, is to make sure that you have that open communication and that you explain to them, this is what the process is. And if I do things that aren't right, this is a consequence that I can suffer. And so if I suffer, we'll all be suffering. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'd like to continue on that same topic.
Mhm.
There's no extension, no ability to ask for extension or postpone it or anything like that, right?
No, for OPT, you can get it, I think, twice.
So you can extend it twice. Because when I was in grad school, there were a
Mhm.
couple of people from eastern part of the world
Mhm.
that decided to go south, to go to schools and become professors, because
Mhm.
that was what's going to allow them to continue to stay in the US.
Mhm.
Do you think that is another part to, at least for those that at least want to do everything possible to stay in the country?
Yeah, I mean, that goes along with finding the right job, finding the right organization or company that can file for you. So if you work for a university, they have the money. So they have the money to be able to file a H-1B visa for you, but they also are probably willing to file a green card for you, because I've had clients that come to me and they had the H-1B, because the H-1B is limited. I think it's like 5 years that you're able to do an H-1B. There's a cap. So if they don't file the citizen for you to have your green card in that time, then they're just going to let you go. So that's something else you have to be mindful of, that there is a statutory limit on how long you can have an H-1B visa with the company. So if that company isn't going to, if you don't see any progress within, I would say 2 to 3 years, then you might need to find another company.
Is there an age limit for when you can file for a student visa? Because some folks are like, oh, I'm married, I have kids, I'm done with.
There's not an age limit. I mean, I've had people come talk to me that were married with kids, some are single. There's not an age limit. They're not ageist. They, as long as you have the money. I mean, that's the other thing, is that you have to prove financially that you're able to take care of yourself here, because you can't get student loans like other people can. So you have to be able to financially stable. And the other thing I will tell people, that some people have come here and they paid the first year and then they stop going to school. Well, you're here illegally, and schools have started reporting that to USCIS. So you're deportable, and you don't want to become deportable and then kicked out, because that has happened to somebody. They had a mix up and the school really messed it up. And so we were fighting the school so that they can get re-registered and get because they were deportable. So the school actually kicked them off campus because of that issue. And so we had to go in and make the school own up to their responsibility, that they messed it up, and do the filing correctly so that the student can stay in school. But the other side, the flip side to that is, if they didn't have the money to stay in school and the school legally had the right, you didn't pay your school fees, so we're kicking you out. then you're deportable because they have to report that to the government.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So I hopefully answered those questions for the students that maybe want to take that route. The other one is asylum. One thing I will say about asylum, you should, if you're going to come here and you file asylum, you need to do so within 6 months. But the other aspect of it is right now is there has to be a causal connection. So you can't say, oh, because I'll say Boko Haram is in Nigeria. Okay, they've been around a long time. How is that affecting your family personally or you personally? So it has to be either you personally or your family, your nucleus family, not your uncles, brother, sister, but your family, your direct parent, your direct children, in order for that to work. So I have clients that do file asylum, but I make sure that they were actually affected by that incident personally, and not that it's just an incident happening in their country.
Can like a abused person file for asylum, or like maybe the police is threatening you? Does it have to be something
Well, it has to be
national?
something like I have the client now, it's dealing with genital mutilation. So that's something that was prominent in their family, and they tried to physically do that to her and possibly to her children. So it has to be something like that, or if you're LGBTQ and they're prosecuting you for that, or if you're a preacher and you're getting prosecuted, persecuted for your faith, or things like that. It has to be something tangible that the United States recognizes as a right. You have the right not to be physically abused. And there's a big thing on genital mutilation, and they understand that it still exists. You have a right to your religion. So religious persecution, you have the right. So that's why they offer asylum for people and refugees too. I mean, it happens. If you go on USCIS, there's countries, Venezuela, I think Haiti's back on the list, Nicaragua, I think Ukraine's on the list now. So you can also look at, there's certain countries. Nigeria is not on the list. I doubt they're going to be on that list ever. But there are countries out there. So you can also look at, those kinds of things where they are accepting refugees from certain countries as well, is another way. The B1 is a visitor's visa. I think that's what our uncle was talking about, coming on a B1 visa. But like I tell people, you should go and come back. And, I know financially it may be a strain, but the reason is that if you go and they can, and don't come, if you stay too long and then come back, they can try to come back, they can block you. And one thing you don't want to do is not be able to have access to a visa. And so sometimes I have clients that no longer have access to a visa. So then we have to do what's called a 601 waiver, which is where I waive their deportability, I waive their inadmissibility. I fight for them to be able to come back or to stay, based on a lot of factors. But you never want to be in that position because it's an unnecessary fight. Just be compliant with your visa and find a way while you're here in the United States to stay legally, if at all possible. There's a business visa. People ask me about this. I've been asked about this a lot. It takes a lot of money in US dollars. So you at least need to have 1 million US dollars in order to apply for the business visa. Yes, because you have filing fees, there's networking you need to do outside of even having that. So you need to have at least $1 million in equity in your business. Yes. And it's going up because it's really 1 million to 1.5.
I thought it was just like, it used to be like $250,000
no, it
to
used to be
buy a
half a
house.
million. It was 500,000, and then under the Trump administration, it went up, and then they brought it back down a little bit, but not really. It's just safe to say 1 million. Yeah. Because there were certain communities and things like that, and then to get in those communities now is a little challenging, and there's workarounds, but just say $1 million is safe. or more, really, more is recommended. Family filing, so if you're a US citizen or your family member is a US citizen, they can file for their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their children, and stepchildren.
Is
So
there an age
sometimes, or
limit?
adopted children. Pardon?
Is there an age limit? Like if I had, you can't apply for your cousin, but if you had like a stepbrother or a brother or a sister
Yeah, your
and
sibling. So
they're like
there's
22
no
years
age,
old.
there's no age limit.
Okay.
There's categories. So if they're unmarried, they're put in one category. If they're married with children, they're put in another category. So whatever category determines the length of time it's going to take. So if you have someone that's unmarried, let's say maybe it takes 5 years. If they're married with children, it may take 10 years.
Is
So
it
that's the
better?
difference. It matters on your on the category that you're placed in.
10 to 20 years to leave the country or 10 to 20 years to get your paperwork when you
No,
leave
to
the
get your
country?
paperwork. And it's by country. So Nigeria is still about 10 years for your sibling that's married with kids. For your sibling unmarried, I think right now it's about 5, but I'd have to check. I haven't checked lately.
So it's better to be unmarried if you want to file for your siblings.
It's better for your sibling to be
Siblings to be
unmarried.
unmarried. Yeah.
And younger. Under 21, it's just easier to
Okay.
get them before you're 21. And plus your parents can file for them under 21 as well. So, and then the easiest person I found so far though is to file for are your parents. If you're a permanent resident, you can file for your wife and your children. If you're a US citizen, you can file for your parents and your siblings, in addition to your wife and children.
What is the average cost for folks that are watching?
For what?
For filing per person?
For family?
And how long does it take? Because I heard it's expensive too as well.
Yeah, so the filing fees are, well, if they're overseas, if the family's filing for you overseas, then the first thing to file is the I-130, which is $535. So it's not, the lawyer fees costs are more, and it depends on the lawyer. But to file just the original I-130 is $535, and that just establishes,
How much do you charge? Because we don't want other people going to other lawyers. We want them to come to you.
Right. So for
Go to
me,
Kota Immigration.
Kota
Chalita
Immigration,
Ablakwa.
yes. So for me, I charge $1,500 upfront for the initial filing, and then the next part is the National Visa Service filing, which is where we upload documents. So once they approve it and allow you to go through the national visa process, because a visa should be available for you in a timely manner, then documents have to be uploaded. And so there are more filing fees. So in total, I charge $2,500, which really isn't that much in legal fees. I really should raise my prices. But $2,500 in legal fees currently, when
I think we might have lost her. She just froze. I saw.
roughly. Because there's $535, there's another one, $485, which is $1,145, and there's a biometric fee of $85. So that's the total to the USCIS, and then you have attorney fees of $2,500. So really, you should budget for $5,000 per person that you want to file for, either overseas or even if it's in the United States. The filing fees for me are the same because the documents are basically the same. The process is just different. So if someone is overseas, then they have to go through USCIS first. And then USCIS sends it to the National Visa Center, and we start another process so you can get your visa from the consulate's office. But if the person is here, we file everything at one time, which is why there's a split fee. for if the person's overseas, because sometimes it takes a while before the National Visa Center actually gets the case.
Yeah, the wow. How long does it take?
Okay, so the family member's in the United States and you're filing for them, then it usually takes a year. If the family member is overseas, then it can take up to 18 months. I've seen longer depending on the country. Nigeria right now is backlogged. It's hard, it's been challenging getting a visa interview. So the processing itself doesn't take that long. It can take we should get done with the processing within a year. But actually getting that visa interview, which is the final step, is what's been challenging because they're so backlogged, and unfortunately,
Everybody's trying to escape. Is that why the backlog?
no, because of COVID. So they were already backlogged,
That's
and
2 years
then
ago.
they were backlogged, and then COVID happened, and they shut down, and so now they're backlogged way more. So it's taken a whole lot for them. We're glad when they finally opened and started processing the visas again there. So it's just taken a while. Africa's just taking a minute.
So there are these people that say, oh, they can pay you to get you in front. You can pay them to get you a visa. You can pay them to get you to Canada. That's all this stuff that people like, oh, check out this link. Someone sent me a link. They can get me to
Coyotes.
America. Can you talk about those? Because I keep telling people there is no other way into Canada or America unless only through the
I mean,
State Department.
I recommend, always will recommend coming the legal way. Yes, there are coyotes out there. Yes, there are people that you can pay. Yes, there are success stories, but for every success story, there are many people that didn't make it. And what happens? Because you go there and you have faulty documentation. So at the port, they send you back. So you wasted $10,000. Or you come to the United States and they realize your documents are illegal when you try to file for something. And then you've wasted your money too, because you can't use the documents that you used to get here in the first place.
How about jumping countries?
You mean like coming to Canada, then coming to the United States?
Yeah, people do many different routes,
I
man.
mean, yeah, people come. I mean, I know people that have come through Mexico, people have come through Haiti, people have come through Canada, people have come through all kinds of places. But it's the same issue, is documentation. What documentation did you use to go from port to port? And on what basis are you coming? Is it asylum? If it's asylum, they're still going to look through your paperwork. They're going to verify all that documentation. And because sometimes people steal someone else's social security number, they steal somebody else's ID, they steal somebody else's green card, and then use that information for you. And then you're stuck. And now, not only are you deportable, you may be restricted from coming to the United States ever again. And so what was the point? Yeah, you got here, you saw it. You saw it like Moses saw the promised land, and then you had to go back. So, as many stories, and one thing I tell people too, I have clients come, well, my friend did this, and my friend said that, and somebody told me, and somebody else, another lawyer said, okay, that's fine. But every case is different. Every person that's going to review your case is different. And so you need to realize that if you go through the process the proper way, you'll get the result that you're looking for. If you try to jump through hoops, if you try to give faulty information, like I'll say for Nigeria, birth certificates, they're being very hard on birth certificates. They're being very hard on age declarations, and they're being very hard on divorce certificates. They are flagging them left, right, and center. So I tell my clients, get divorced legally, go through the process. It may take 6 to 9 months, but get the right documentation, because USCIS has a way to find out if you're divorced or not. Yes, there are several hundred people here that have gone throughout the system and averted it. But guess what? They've been starting slowly but surely getting people. They're trying to revoke permanent residencies for people that later on they find out have faulty documents. So in my professional opinion, I always tell people, use the right documents and stop going on your friend's advice. The first person, oh yeah, they've been here for 5 years. That doesn't mean they came right. That doesn't mean they know the latest laws. I get emails, I receive emails from USCIS every week about some policy that's changed, some document that's changed, something that they want to try to change, in the administrative changes that they're anticipating. And so all that, your friend, your colleague, somebody that's been here doesn't have that information because they're not in the legal industry. So pay the consultation fee of, like, my consultation fees are $150. Pay it. It's worth that hour, can change your life forever. And it's really worth it.
Save you the $10,000, $5,000 that you're
It'll
gonna
save you the
spend.
coyote money.
Yep. Some folks say they want to
If you have
take.
a baby here,
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah.
okay. If you have a baby here, your child is a citizen that they cannot file for you till they're 18.
And
And they're really trying to, and right now they're working on making that rule. They're trying to abolish it, to say just because a child is born here doesn't give them automatic citizenship. So just know that too, because they're working very hard to make that happen.
and that doesn't stop them from sending you back because you
Oh
have the
yeah,
child
you
here,
still
right?
can get deported. Your child's a citizen, but like I was telling earlier, you're naturalized, your child can always come back to the United States, but that doesn't mean you can.
Also, some folks want to get a job from Nigeria while in Nigeria to come here. How is that possible? How does that work? Even Canada, apparently Canada has a program where if you're a professional, you can get a job from Nigeria and then move to Canada.
Well, I guess there's two tracks to that. It would still be the same H-1B process. Yes, Canada, they were trying to get certain industries into their country. So they started offering programs. So it is a special program. Even the United States has certain programs for nurses and other health professionals to get them here, but it's still a process. It's still a visa process that you have to go through. So you have to make sure too that you understand everything that's required, because there are programs that they have where you can come here, you can work, and then you have to go back and you have to stay in that home. It's called a J1 visa. You can come, you can study and do great things, and then you have to go back and you have to stay in your home country for 2 years. Then there are other programs that through that, if you go through that program and work for the right company that they approved, then they're able to, get you a permanent residency card. But with that, permanent residency status. But with that, I will say always read exactly what the qualifications are and also what they are mandating from you. Because some people say, oh, okay, I'll go to this program when I get here, but then you don't realize you have to work for that company for 3 years. Or even after your 3 years, they can either let you go, or if they decide, they can file a green card for you. Because just because the company brings you here on an H-1B visa, they do not have to file a green card for you. They do not have to file permanent residency for you. It's not mandatory. So once you serve their purpose and the time that they want you here, that doesn't give you a legal status to remain in the United States. Just like students, if you don't have the OPT or anything like that, you have to go back home. It's the same with the H-1B visa. There is a time limit. And so you need to know whatever that program is, exactly what those requirements are, and every program is different.
Is the pay protected? Because I realized that immigrants are underpaid. Even though they brought you here, you sometimes not paid the equal amount the American citizens get paid.
Yeah, so when they do the H-1B visa for you, then you discuss and you negotiate pay at that time, just like you would any other job. And there are rights when you are in the United States, there are always rights, but usually in the United States, most jobs are at will. It's at your will and at their will. So negotiate your salary up front. If they start docking your pay or, making it less than what you agreed upon when you came with that program, but then you do have legal rights, because they can't exploit you because you are an immigrant. But if you agree to make $30,000 a year on the program, and then you find out someone else in the United States is making $45,000 a year, it's not necessarily a violation because you agreed to that pay. So you also have to be diligent to know what is your worth to that company as well, so that you can get the pay that you desire. People in the United States face the same thing. African Americans versus white, women versus men. It's the same. So you have to fight for yourself, but do it in the beginning.
Thank you. I don't have any more questions. I think I've tried to ask questions on behalf of folks that I've heard. Does anybody on the call have any additional questions?
How can you expatriate to Canada?
You mean go to Canada?
Yeah, like if you wanted to become a citizen there.
If you want to become
Is this similar?
it's similar, but they have their own process. So every country has their own process. So people think Canada and United States have the same. It's not. Generally speaking, people have told me that Canada is more liberal, and their processes and easier to access than the United States. But they also have qualifications to become citizens and also to enter into Canada. And just because you enter Canada doesn't mean that you'll automatically be able to enter the United States, because they are two different countries.
So scenario, you came to America, student visa, you're running out of time, you haven't gotten a job yet, and like, hey, Canada is right up the street. Mexico is right up the street. How about I go to Canada instead of going back to Nigeria? Start that process. How does that work?
Yeah, so you can start the process in Canada and become a permanent resident in Canada, citizen in Canada, but that doesn't mean that you don't have any status in the United States. People have gotten stuck in Mexico and they had to go back to Nigeria because they tried to go out and come back in, but they didn't have the paperwork necessary to come back. So you can get stuck. People have been known to get stuck in that Canada or Mexico and not been able to come back into the United States because they didn't have the proper paperwork.
So how do you do the proper paperwork to leave the US if you think that it's not going to happen here in the US?
So you leave, like once your visa's up, you just go back to your home country and then start a new visa process. If you want to come back to school, then you refile the F1 petition so that you can re-enter maybe a different university or the same university, but a different program. But usually before your time is up, there are international student, I think it's even like an office, international students office. At least when I was going to school, they had it. And I know they still do, because I talked to students that have assistants there that help you through that process, that if you want to get your master's degree, then they help you refile your F1 visa so that you can just continue your study in that school. Or if you decide you want to go to another school, you do that with that school and make sure that your papers are processed properly. So that even if you have to go, if you have the proper paperwork, they let you back in. It's just about paperwork. You have to have and so that's why I say either get legal advice or go through the school that has that office. So you need to make sure when you come to the United States, you have a school that has that office and understands what documents that they need to complete and make sure they do it properly. So that you understand that if it's 4 years, you have 4 years. If it's 2 years or 18 months, that you have that time, because usually it's limited to that time plus 6 months. So and don't wait till the end, because some people are like, oh man, don't wait.
Don't wait to the last minute.
Don't wait to the last minute.
Okay. The idea of coming to America to just disappear into mid-year, or coming to school and then disappearing in mid-year, can you
You're deportable.
Advice exactly the portable and what happens? Like, how
You
long
may
do you
be
think you can
banned from coming back. Like
yeah.
I've had to, like I was saying earlier, file 601 waivers for more than one person because they were not supposed to come back. You know, that's what the 601 waiver is that, okay, I know that I'm inadmissible because of the things I did in the past and violated my visa, but these are the reasons why you should let me back in and give me another chance. or they get deported. And so when you get deported and then you want to start filing for things, they just deny you because they're like, no, this person didn't honor the first one because they want to stay in the United States. They don't really want to come get educated. They don't really want to come and be a benefit to our society. They just want to come to be in the United States. And so that stops people from being able to get their visas.
Yeah, so a lot of people think that it was just the Trump administration that's excessively or intentionally that
I said a lot of
intentionally
people were deported under the
Obama
Obama
administration.
administration. A
And
lot.
and they think that they don't intentionally look for people, that there's not an office that just goes and look for illegal immigrants, that they can just disappear and they'll just be fine.
Well, the ICE office is designated to do just that, to find you. And the thing about, we talked about school because we have students, is that the school is mandated to report to USCIS. And whatever documents you have that you think, oh, I'm gonna go get a license, or I'm gonna go get a job, or go get a TIN number, you're already in the system, so you're flagged. So that's another way that's easy even to come and find you if they so choose to do so. And some people say, well, I've been here 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they don't worry about it. But when it comes time for you to try to do it the legal route, it becomes an obstacle. And sometimes it's hard to get around it.
Some argue that if they pay taxes, that will protect them.
So it's a double-edged sword. So you have the ITIN number and it's legal. You're able to do that. But with certain applications, they ask, have you worked illegally in the United States? You have to say yes, because you didn't legally work in the United States. You just filed an ITIN number, which is like, I have a business and I get paid through my business, which you're not legally here and you're not legally authorized to work. So even though it is good, it shows good character. So usually they just look over it, like, okay, at least they paid their taxes and did the right thing, even though they weren't supposed to, work here illegally. Some, like if you're filing for your spouse or something like that, they tend to look over it. But there are other visas that they may not. Other programs, they may not.
If you have a student visa, are you allowed to start a business, or are you also required to pay taxes?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a student, any person that's in the United States can start a business, but in order to start a business and file it, you're supposed to have a social security number, not an ITIN number. You're supposed to have the social security number to actually register with the state. So that's another obstacle and a way that they mitigate illegal immigrants from owning businesses, truly owning a business.
And also paying taxes.
Yeah. Either way, with your ITIN number, you can pay your taxes.
But a lot of them don't pay taxes. They don't think they have to pay taxes.
Okay, you are supposed to pay taxes. Even with your ITIN number, they did make a provision for you to pay your taxes. So that's not a reason not to pay your taxes. And the reason I tell people it's good to pay your taxes too, is that if you have an immigration issue later on, it shows that you have a good character, that you don't have a criminal record, and that you pay your taxes, show that you are a good resident of the United States, even if you're not legal. So it does help.
Thank you. Can you tell folks more about your business so that they can reach out to you?
Sure. I think I have a slide. Okay. I think I answered those questions. I can be reached at info@codaimmigration.com or Charlita@codaimmigration.com, or you can go online to codaimmigration.com, and there's also a place for you to ask questions or contact me as well if you prefer to do it that way. And like I said before, I'm an immigration lawyer, so I practice mainly family immigration, but I've had the opportunity to advise students, OPT students in school currently, or those that are trying to get here as well, and help people with asylum and other matters. So even though my focus is on immigration, I am able to at least try to direct you in the right direction in other areas of law that may be of interest to you, or direct you to other counsel that may be able to help you. But I would be honored to serve as your immigration attorney for any immigration matters that you have, and look forward to hearing from any of you. And you're able to reach out. I hate saying but so thank you. Again, it's codaimmigration.com or info@codaimmigration.com or Charlita@codaimmigration.com are the ways I'm able to be reached. And you can also reach out to Kenny as well, because he knows how to contact me. I do charge consultation fees. So my consultation fees are $150. And then any other immigration related matters also have fees, and we can discuss that one-on-one privately. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Permission to post this on public spaces?
What spaces?
I might post it on YouTube to make it easily accessible. You never know, you might just go big after this.
No problem.
All right. Thank you all for attending. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks, Ty.